Shadowrun Returns is an isometric RPG that's based on the tabletop RPG Shadowrun. It came out in 2013, and since then, 2 more Shadowrun games were made by the devs, Shadowrun Dragonfall and Shadowrun Hong Kong. Although I played this game a long time ago, I hadn't remembered it well enough to give it a fair review. After playing through the other 2, I decided to give it a go for comparison's sake. By the way, the 3 Shadowrun games aren't linked, and so there's no need to play them in order. The setting. In Shadowrun, magic waxes and wanes as the moon does. In 2011, it came back to Earth. As a result, many things changed, and Earth was said to enter its next phase, the 6th world. It's called the 6th world both because it's the 6th recorded shift and because of Mayan calendar stuff. Some of the effects of magic's return are visible in character creation. Some babies were born as dwarves and elves. Later on, in 2021, goblinization occurred, and 10% of humans randomly and suddenly morphed into orcs and trolls. Some people were also born magically talented. They can either channel magic through their bodies, tap into the spirit world, or cast various spells. Meanwhile, tech kept developing, and cybernetic enhancements became possible. Both Deckers and Riggers are tech-based classes. Deckers are essentially modern hackers, and they enter the Matrix, the modern internet, as avatars to download secure data. While there, they also fight the avatars of defensive programs, laser tag style. Riggers can mentally control drones to fight alongside them, and very rarely send them into vents to scout ahead. The story. Your former friend, Sam Watts, has died. He suspected that he'd be killed by somebody eventually, and so he had a contingency plan to get some post-mortem justice. That plan was a dead man switch, which would call your character to action on the event of his untimely death. And to motivate you, the video you're sent also comes with a monetary offer. If you solve his murder, then you're told you'll get a lot of money. As you dive into the investigation, matters turn out to be far more wide-reaching than they seemed. Revealing why and how would be major spoilers though, and I decided to try it and do a spoiler-free review for this one because the story's okay. It does have holes, but the overall tale and resolution aren't too bad. For example, late in the game, you encounter a man who says that you owe him a massive debt for some of your actions. A few moments later, it's revealed that you also inadvertently did him a massive favor. In gratitude, he instantly says that your debt is forgiven, then he wants you to undertake a new, highly dangerous mission. If you have a certain etiquette skill, then you can bargain with him to pay you an enormous sum for accepting the job. But after you've completed the mission, then he suddenly cares about the debt again, and your fee for the mission has that debt deducted. That doesn't make sense in context. It seems as if the writers forgot that the man had forgiven the debt. Yet, because the game ends shortly afterward, and the payment would only affect your character's post-game actions, the whole seems bothersome, but not huge. The problem is that there are many moments like this in the writing. The holes don't ruin the overall story, but they do detract from it. The gameplay. Unlike in Hong Kong, there is a very hard mode. I chose that, hoping for some extra challenge. I also decided to play as an elven shaman since I'd done that in the other 2 games, and that'd make comparison between all 3 both easier and fairer. However, the very hard mode seemed ridiculous. What made it hard was that my PC and the hired team members all had horrible aim. The percentage chance to hit, which was shown, didn't seem to be the actual chance to hit. Percentages overall just seemed off. For example, summons breaking control way too often. This mode, having been removed on top of my own personal experience, leads me to think that the very hard mode is probably a bit buggy in its calculations. During play, it became apparent that the gameplay options are much more limited than in the later games. These limitations apply to everything. The PC, the companions, the dialogue, the combat abilities, and even the items. For example, shamans have no acid bolt conjuring spell, which is in the later 2 games. It's a good damage-dealing spell for a conjurer. In this game, the only damage-dealing conjuring spells offered are barriers, which will only hurt individuals who walk through them. There's no targeted attack available for conjurers. Similarly, there's no aura reading in this game, which allows shamans to get more information in later games. I also noticed that the vents on the maps, which can be used by Riggers drones, weren't really helpful in this game. In fact, one was even blocked off, which seemed like a mistake. Companions are also far more limited. Most of them have no dialogue at all and are just hireable. The few who can speak don't speak too much. They're okay, they have a sense of personality, but they're not developed well. The same can be said for the other NPCs too. For example, you can learn about the doctor's background and her motivations for working in the shadows. She's somewhat developed and seems okay, but the dialogue choices with her are limited and she doesn't say much. Plus, graphically, after a character loses an arm, it stays on her table for the whole game, which is weird. As for NPCs aiding the player on missions, companions can't help the player with stat or skill checks, which was the case in Dragonfall, but sometimes they also randomly can't help with class checks either. For example, sometimes deckers can hack into things, and on one mission, you're even supposed to have one on your team for that reason. At other times, the option to hack into something is there, but no decker teammate is allowed to do it. Their helpfulness is awkwardly implemented. Plus, teammates can't even res you in this game. In the later two, if you have a trauma kit, then you can raise up a teammate, and they can do the same for your PC. In Shadowrun Returns, if your character falls, then it's an immediate game over. There's also an item limitation at play here too, because in later games, if your PC has a trauma kit on them, then it auto-activates if they fall in battle. Instead, in this game, it just sits uselessly in the inventory. When considering Shadowrun Returns without comparison to the later two games, then it still doesn't seem great. Options are limited, NPCs are barely interactive, the dialogue choices often seem way too similar, and there's only a single ending with minor variations along the way. It's okay to play, but it's not enthralling. And when compared with its successors, it's clear that the devs improved on many things as they made additional games. But it's not a long game. It took me a bit under 18 hours to beat it on very hard mode, which included me having to redo some fights due to a combo of missed hits and enemy criticals leading to some bad times. I think that its shortness is part of why it's okay to play. Yes, there are limitations that are kind of bothersome, but for a game this short, they're not too bad. The look and the sound. The soundtrack blends into the background and adds atmosphere, but although there are 18 different tracks, most of them sound similar to me. The title track, Return of the Sixth World, did grow on me a bit, but overall, I think that the sound's slightly better than okay. It didn't wow me, but it definitely did make the game better. It also looks rather pretty and shiny. I did notice some flaws in the game, but overall, it looked polished. I appreciated the attention to detail that they put into the background art and the occasional lore-based Easter eggs. The only thing that got on my nerves was how the camera zoomed out whenever there was dialogue. I had to zoom back in again if I wanted the camera to be where it was before. I preferred to stay zoomed in, and so this annoyed me often. I also would have liked it if the dialogue boxes were just a bit bigger and easier to read. Final thoughts. I thought that its gameplay was less interesting than its successors, but it wasn't as buggy for me as Dragonfall was, and I also thought that it had a better story than Dragonfall did. Given these factors, I like it more than Dragonfall, but less than the third game, Hong Kong. The story is okay, and the gameplay, while not as varied, is passable and bug-free. For a game that's under 18 hours long, and that's if you do everything going completionist on very hard mode, it's not bad. It'd probably take most people around 14 hours, I'm guessing. And if you're wondering how it stands alone, without comparing it to later games, then I still think that it's just okay. The dialogue choices are often limited, and sometimes they even seem to mirror each other. There's not much flavor text, not much of a sense of choice. Meanwhile, characters lack depth. The story is short and full of holes, and there's only one ending with minor variations along the way. Yet, the combat is okay, and the story, despite its problems, is also okay. The game also looks good and sounds good, so overall, yeah, it's okay, but it didn't wow me or anything.